So welcome to my yarn tale about how I created this small scarf. I know there's lots of them out there and a popular one's called the Sophie Scarf. Just to make note, I have never officially purchased the Sophie Scarf, but I am pretty smart at being able to figure things out, so I decided to figure out how to make a petite scarf myself. So I designed a couple of patterns. One is easier than the other, but I'm going to illustrate both, and you can follow along in this tutorial and knit your own. So because it's not officially a Sophie scarf, but it is a petite scarf, just for fun, I decided to call it the Suzie Scarf. All right, the Suzie Scarf. Here we are. Now, if you're inclined and you're following along, grab a couple of US 6 double pointed needles and some light fingering weight or DK yarn is what you want because it's the easiest size to work with. You don't want it to be too heavy. You definitely don't want to do worsted weight. I made one like that and it's a little bit too heavy. So then you cast on 7 stitches. You can cast on whatever way you want. There's several different ways of casting on. This is just one of them. So you cast on 7 stitches. And then you'll turn your work and start knitting. Now we will knit. Make sure you don't get your tail mixed up with your working yarn. I've done that a few times. I had to backtrack. So basically, you're going to knit the first 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then you're going to bring your yarn forward. You just bring it forward. Don't have to do anything with it because then you're going to slip stitch the last 3 stitches. And you're going to do that basically throughout the work. You'll always be slipping the last 3 stitches. Now see how the yarn is in kind of a funny position? It's not at the end where it would be if you were doing normal knitting. It's actually back behind those 3 stitches. But that's by design. That's what helps create this I-cord edge. So you just simply knit 1, 2, knit those 3 stitches. In this case, now I've got the 4th stitch there. I'm actually going to use that as my increase stitch. So you knit in the front, don't take it off the hook, move it around, slip it into the back of that same stitch. So that's called knit front to back. And you knit it, and by that, you create a stitch. That's your increase. So I now have 5 stitches on that side. Now I got 3 on the left. What do? You bring the yarn forward and you slip those 3 stitches. That's the way that end of work is always going to be. Yarn forward and slip the 3 stitches. Then you turn your work around and you knit those 3 stitches. And it creates a nice little cord effect on the edge. So here we are. This would be technically row 2 of the 3 repeat pattern. First one is the increase row, then you do a straight knit until you get to the end of the 3 stitches, in which case you bring your yarn forward and you slip those 3 stitches. So this is row 2. Turn to work, and then you've got row 3. So simply knit across until you get to those last 3 stitches again, where you'll bring your yarn forward and slip them. So that's the 3 row repeat. And what happens is you end up increasing on the right hand side of your work and then increasing on the left hand side of your work. So every 3rd row you're going to be doing the increase. Does that make sense? Maybe it's every 4th row. There's the first row is the increase row, then a knit row, then a knit row, then you're back to increase row again. And that balances out the increases on each side, as opposed to all going up one side. I'm pretty sure I had read, or somebody told me, that the Sophie Scarf, you're increasing only on the one side, and that's fine. And they also told me that the Sophie Scarf increases every 8th row, and people were having trouble with that. So even I, with the 3-row repeat, I had sometimes like, which row am I on? I can't remember. So I'd have little mnemonic devices or things that I use. One handy item that I use is a digital row counter. So you can download these apps. There's lots of different ones. I downloaded one, and then I was able to just mark when I was on row 1, row 2, row 3, and I'll show you. Hold on. And you just open up whatever section you use to get your apps. And I downloaded this row counter, which I found was rather handy. And then I just used it 1 and 2 and 3, and then I would go start over again. I know it's only 3 rows, but it helped to keep me on track. There's a lot of other neat features to it, like letting you label your whatever project you're working on. In that case, I was working on the white petite scarf, but it's handy, and even just downloading it is fun to use. Figure out how to use it. I like learning new things, so it's fun to use. Okay, back to the knitting. So I'm using a worsted weight yarn here just because it's thicker and it's kind of easier to see. So it's just for illustration purposes. But again, you see how I come to the end of that row and I slip those 3 stitches. And then I just turn my work and I knit those 3 stitches. Now, in a second, I'm going to find out whether this is an increase row or what have we got. If it's not an increase row, you just knit across. Yep, it's an increase row where we knit in the front, then we knit in the back. And that gives you a nice, neat increase with no holes. And again, just to a comparison, so I've been told the Sophie pattern has you knit 2 and then you increase on that 3rd stitch. I just like to keep the 3 stitches separate. Like you get to the end of your row, you slip your 3 stitches, turn your work, knit your 3 stitches, and then you do your increase. Why not? Let's just try to keep it simple, right? So, and then you go across your row, of course, and then you bring your yarn forward and you slip those last 3 stitches. So if you're following along, I hope you have enough time to do this without getting confused or like, where am I at? Slip those 3 stitches on the end. For me, I don't know why, it's weird or what, but this was the fun part. Every time I got to those 3 stitches, I thought, here's the fun part. I guess because you're not knitting and you're not purling them. You just slip, slip, slip. It goes rather quick. Remember that little tail that you wanted to make sure you didn't mistake that for your working yarn and it was left on the end? What you will do with that is you'll actually sew in your 2 ends together so that brings it into a bit of a point. So that's some of the finishing work that you would do with your project. You will keep your pattern, your row 1, 2, and 3 with your increase, knit, knit, increase, knit, knit, and then it gradually has an increase on each side so it evens out. You keep doing that till your work measures about 4 inches. I also found that 4 inches was roughly about 28 to 30 stitches, but it depends on the weight of your yarn. If you're using a DK weight, it's probably about 30 stitches, but again, measure it out. I actually made some that were larger and I took them apart because it just didn't look the same. I found that 4 inches worked pretty good. And I asked the AI, artificial intelligence, how wide is the Sophie scarf? And it actually told me it was 4.5 inches. So we're keeping in line with the idea of the petite scarf by doing that. When you get to the end of your work, the desired length that you want, again, you're going to do that 3 pattern repeat, 3 row repeat. So you're going to decrease on this side by knitting 2 together. So you're going to knit your 3 stitches and then you're going to knit 2 together and go across your row, and then you slip your 3 stitches, turn your work. Then the next row would be a knit row, slip your 3 stitches, turn your work, then another knit row, that's your 3rd row. And then slip your 3 stitches, turn your work, and then you knit those 3 stitches, knit 2 together. So you see how your decrease is one side and then the other side, and that gives it this nice shaping, as opposed to, let's say, something that's going to be just shaped on one side. I just prefer that, sort of balancing it out. And these ends are small enough, narrow enough for tying, and it works out well. I just found it kind of easier. And again, I was just sort of figuring it out. If you know some basics about knitting, knit, purl, increase on this I-cord edge, which I found really interesting. That was new for me. I had to watch a video on how to make an I-cord edge, and I just thought that was such a neat thing. So I will be trying to figure out how to incorporate it into other patterns. Once you know the basics, you can figure out a lot of different things on your own. So that's how you decrease and shape the scarf. Now I'm going to show you another method. With this method, which I think is easier than the other I-cord issue, you cast on the number of stitches for the length that you want. So on average, I cast on about 200 stitches. The very first one I did, the pink one I did, I knit 244 stitches. I found that it's a little bit long because when you block your wool, your yarn, it stretches. To illustrate this pattern idea, I'm using a worsted weight wool, which again, I don't really recommend unless you want a thicker scarf like that, but it just shows up better when I'm trying to show you how I do this. So I'm actually using, I think they call it an Italian bind-on, or maybe not. There's a lot of different ways. This is a simple way. Some of them are easier to get your needle through after you've cast them on. I said bind on, I meant cast on. So I'm casting on my 200 stitches. And I'm using circular needles, not because I'm going to knit it in the circle, just because it holds 200 stitches better. Sometimes I don't like working with them, but they work. You get the correct end product. So then I usually just knit the first and second row without any increases. So, but eventually we're going to have increases on each end of the row, each row that you knit. So now I'm just knitting across the row. So if you're following along and you want to do that, I'll meet you at the end. I have included the pattern in the description if you want to follow that along. And unfortunately, you can't copy it, but you can type it out, I suppose. So what you do after your third and fourth row is that you decrease on each end. So you knit one, you knit two together, and then you go all the way across to the end of your row. When you get to the end of those 200 and some stitches, you will knit two together and then knit one and turn your work. So in the end, you've got, this is kind of an easier pattern. You've got the length that you want, and you're just gradually decreasing on one side. So you knit one, knit two together, go across your row, get to the last three stitches, knit two together, knit one, and that gives you your shaping. So this shaping is a little bit more like the Sophie Scarf, so I'm told. As I said, I've never purchased the pattern, and I probably won't, because what would I be purchasing it for? I've already got two patterns that work well for me. So, and you just keep decreasing like that on each end, each row, until you reach 4 inches wide. So here you go. You just knit one, knit two together. And this wool is actually a sport weight or a sock yarn. And it's a little bit rough, but if you soak it in some Downy and block it, and I've actually even I steam ironed this one. It comes out a little bit softer. So it works. This is a softer yarn that I'm working with that I remembered I still had some. I had made a poncho out of this. It was really, really soft. So this is some additional footage. This is the knitting with the I-cord edging where you're doing the increase every third row. So if you're done, you can just skip this, end this, put a thumbs up, leave a comment. And if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe, because you just never know what's going to show up here. And hopefully it's something that can inspire you and be of interest. Now, if you're following along, again, you cast on your first 7 stitches, you knit first 4 stitches, yarn forward, slip the 3, turn your work, knit those 3 stitches, as I'm going to do right here, and use your row counter or pick up sticks, move them along, whatever you use in order to keep yourself on track. So in this case, I'm knitting 4 stitches. Oh, this is probably my increase, is it? Let me see. I took this video, now I'm narrating it. There we go. Yep, knit front to back, which is your first increase row. So that would have been now 5 stitches. You got 3 left. You know what you're going to do. Yarn forward, knit and slip those 3 stitches. Turn your work, knit those 3 stitches. Actually, this is row 2, so you're going to knit all the way across the row till you get to the last 3, in which case yarn forward, slip the 3 stitches. Now, I have knit this in a couple of evenings. So I am knitting up a bunch because I do a harvest market in the fall, and these will be on the table this year. It'll be something new and different, and hopefully they sell, and if not, they go out for gifts. The other thing is I've knit enough colors that they go with a lot of clothing that I own. So I just find they add a little bit of color. On Sunday, I wore a navy dress with a knit jacket, and I wore a red one, and it just adds a bit of color and style to whatever you're wearing, whether you tie it up or not. The other thing is, it's amazing how cozy and warm it leaves you, or helps you be cozy and warm. So when I've been wearing one for a while and I take it off, immediately I feel like, oh, gee, now it's cool. So I think they're very versatile. Oh, there's another, at the end of this video, I'll show you some ways of wearing it. And another way is wrapping it around your head. It almost looks like a headband. And so if you want to tie your hair back one day and you got the scarf on, You know, sometimes we head out, we don't realize how windy it is. We have a scarf on, we can tie it up around our head. You know, this is what I learned about being 70. Who cares what you look like? You go for comfort. You go for style, you go for what you like. And you think less about what other people think. So, if you've knit one of these, please let me know. Let me know about the style and the color, what you wear it with, how versatile it is. And if you don't like it, go ahead and let me know. I don't care. Remember what I said? Being 70, you care less about what other people think. But I do appreciate positive comments. So leave a comment and I will get back to you. Cheers. And now the fashion show. This is worn simply as a collar. This one is tied at the very end, more collar like. This one's more scarf like with a traditional tie around the neck. This is the one that takes care of the chicken neck, hopefully. This is one of my favorites, honestly, and it's the first one I made. Here's another one of my favorites, which my granddaughter decided she wanted for herself, so I've lost it. Now, these two I didn't make up, but they are examples of how you can vary the stitch and create just a slightly different look. I think I'm going to do that eyelet one next. So there you go. It's lots of ideas that you can play with. Happy knitting!